I am your host, Tia Carol Jones. I'm here today with 26th District Illinois State Representative Kam Buckner. State Rep, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a native Chicagoan, born and raised here in the city on the far south side. Grew up in the Roseland neighborhood. Am a product of the Chicago public school system. I had the opportunity to go on and do my college work at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, which was a great time for me. And then I came back home, did some work in politics, and decided I wanted to go to law school. So I went to DePaul University College of Law. I am the fourth of five children. My mom was a CPS teacher. My dad was a cop, and so I've got a pretty Chicago heavy and Chicago organic story. But for the last 2.5 years, I've been the state representative for the 26th district, and it's been the job of a lifetime for me.
What inspired you to get into politics?
I would say that as a young man growing up in Chicago, I saw the reverence that my parents and my grandparents had for Mayor Washington. Going to his wake, at a very young age. I was probably 2 or 3 years old when he passed away. But seeing how much they adored him, seeing my grandmother, talk about him with such bellowing pride, it really made me start thinking about what politics was, right, and who politicians were, and how they added to the fabric of our society. And so the more I learned and the more I read up and studied on kind of public service, it really pushed me in that direction. I also will say, as I mentioned my parents earlier, they taught us that public service is the rent that you pay to live on earth, right? And that manifests itself in different ways depending on what it is that your passion is. But for my mother, it was kids. For my father, it was his community. And so I always knew that I would be working in some form or fashion in public service. I did not necessarily know it would be on the political side, but I'm happy that it is.
State Representative Buckner, you represent the 26th District. What neighborhoods are a part of your district, and what makes each one unique?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I have the pleasure and privilege of serving one of the most racial and socioeconomically diverse districts in the entire state of Illinois. 26th District sits completely in the city of Chicago, but it has some very nuanced and diverse neighborhoods. I represent places like South Chicago, near the old steel yards. I represent South Shore, as we know, a very historical African American community that has real deep roots and real deep stories. I represent Woodlawn in Greater Grand Crossing. I live in and represent Bronzeville, Hyde Park and Kenwood, the South Loop, downtown, River North, Streeterville, all the way up to the Gold Coast. Mm-hmm. So folks who know Chicago know that that's a very, very diverse and distinct district. And what is very important to me is that when I look at the things that we work on in Springfield and the policy measures that we've tried to wrap our hands around, I look at a neighborhood like Washington Park, who is just a stone's throw from my home. And I look at a neighborhood like Streeterville. These places are only about 6.5 miles apart, but as far as life expectancy is concerned, Washington Park has a life expectancy that is 18.5 years lower than that in Streeterville, right? These are two neighborhoods in the same city. These are two neighborhoods in the same state rep district. And so it's important to me to continue to find ways to stand up and to highlight and to strengthen places like Streeterville and River North, but also make sure that places like Washington Park and Bronzeville and Greater Grand Crossing have the opportunity to live the quality of life that their neighbors do to the north of them.
How does politics differ from New Orleans to Washington, D.C. to Chicago and down to Springfield?
Well, that's a great question. So Chicago and New Orleans have a lot in common.
Okay.
That they're both very, I would call them tribal, neighborhood-driven cities that often have a chip on their shoulder. Mm-hmm. Folks in Chicago who have really felt like their neighborhoods have been disinvested in, or who haven't gotten the help and the resources they need. We walk around with a certain, a certain swagger about ourselves because it's forced us to be self-reliant and self-sufficient. people in New Orleans have a very similar kind of aura about themselves, and you can't blame them when you look at footage from August of 2005 when there were thousands of our brothers and sisters on top of the roofs of their homes waiting for help from the local and the federal government to come save them from a disaster that we knew was coming. So I think that really engenders a certain kind of toughness when it comes to the cities and politics. DC is very kind of top down, right? It's not the kind of the organic neighborhood political stuff that we see in places like Chicago and New Orleans doesn't really exist in DC. It's kind of it's the big show, right? And so it's a little bit different, but we all know that the ex-Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, said that all politics is local, right? And so there's something special, I think, about the community-driven politics that you see in places like Chicago and New Orleans.
As the chair of the Illinois House Black Caucus, what is your reaction to the passing of the bills meant to end systemic racism that were introduced by the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus?
I'm extremely proud. I'm extremely proud of my colleagues, of the work that we were able to do to really move the needle and be the tip of the spear and really show the rest of the country what can be done. When we saw the fallout from George Floyd, when we think about the fallout right here in our own city from the Laquan McDonald murder and Rakia Boyd and the names that we all know way too well. The question always was, how do we change? How do we go from protest to progress? How do we take these very unfortunate and egregious incidents and turn them into actionable change for our people? And my colleagues and I in the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus were able to do that, and it's really a testament to the hard work of each member of the caucus, and us really taking an opportunity to make sure that the work that we're doing is mirroring what our communities need. So I am proud. I couldn't be prouder. But we do know that it's not the end. This is just the beginning, because we have a lot more work to do.
How important are these laws when it comes to moving toward equity for Black people in Illinois?
They're very important. We, for a long time, have been told that laws like the ones that we passed were too provocative, they were too progressive, they were too radical, and that we should wait our turn. We should wait for things to get better. What we know is that things weren't going to change by osmosis, right? That we had to actually put the work in. But we also know is that the cavalry is not coming, right? The people who are going to save Chicago, who are going to save Illinois, are already here. And what we have to do is give voice to these folks and give these folks the resources that they need to not save themselves from their communities or from their people, but to save their communities and their people based on the passion that really runs through the veins of the folks who we represent. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I think there's a lot, as I said, a lot more work to do, but we've proven already that we can coalesce and put together a coalition and to at least begin the conversation to make things better.
Out of all the legislation that passed, which one do you think has the potential to have the most impact in the communities you serve? Why and how will it impact those communities?
So, it's hard for me to single out specifically which one I think will have the most lasting impact. I think that we broke down these 4 pillars in a way that was meant to address the quality of life issues that we suffer from in most of our communities, right? So there's an economic pillar, and we talk about the fact that economic justice is a huge thing, and that our people have often been left out of the conversation. We talk about healthcare, right, and making sure that the healthcare delivery system, when it comes to African American communities around the state, is on par with those of our white counterparts. We talk about education and workforce development, making sure that we are putting dollars into the communities that need them the most, and providing our people with an opportunity to work and to be a part of the larger economy And then lastly, the one that got the most attention was we talk about criminal legal reform, right? And I very specifically say criminal legal reform because I believe that we don't have a criminal justice system. I believe that there's been no justice for folks who have been victims of crime. I think there's been no justice for folks who have been criminally accused. I think there has been no justice for our communities. I think we've had a criminal legal system that has put priority on profits instead of people. And so because of that, I think we're not reforming our criminal justice system. I think we're creating our criminal justice system. And there's a lot of that that's going to cut real deep to some of the issues that our people and our communities in this city has faced for a very long time. So I'm of the mindset that everything that we were able to pass is going to be something that's going to be consequential for not just for Black folks, right, but for the entire state of Illinois, the entire city of Chicago, and hopefully our neighbors in other states as they see what this means in real life.
When it comes to legislation in Springfield, what's next? You said this is just the beginning. So.
Yeah. I tell you what, we package this as our aggressive fight against systemic racism, right? Systemic inequality and benign neglect and the things that we've seen for a very long time. One thing I know to be true is that when you aggressively attack and fight systemic racism, it will aggressively attack and fight you right back, right? And so what we will be spending a lot of time doing, I think, is making sure that that we are able to, I think, bolster the work that we've done so far. These were big bills. These were very big pieces of legislation, and there's no such thing as perfect legislation. So we'll have to find ways and time and opportunities to tweak things as we learn more about the practical sense of them. But I think that as we continue to move in a direction where we're no longer talking about being quote unquote free, but we're doing the free walk, right? And we're putting our money where our mouth is as a state, making sure that our budgets and the resources that we put into our communities mirror what it is that we say we care about. That's going to be our fight in the Black Caucus, and we'll continue to have that fight. I'm hopeful and optimistic that we will be successful.
What are some of the ways your constituents can get in touch with you if they have questions or concerns or just need information?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is Kam Buckner, KAMBUCKNER.com. There's a section there where you can send us a note or reach out to us via phone. All the numbers are there on the site. I'm very active on social media, so Rep REPKAM Buckner BUCKNER on Instagram or Twitter. I answer all my emails. I see all of the notes. Now, I may not answer all the notes if you're being a little rude, but but I will. I do try to engage with folks in whatever way possible. And so as the world opens back up as well, we'll go back to doing office hours and having coffees. I would have coffees around the district once or twice a month, where I would just sit there for a couple of hours and we'll speak with anybody that walks in about any problems they're having. But there's a million ways to find us. It shouldn't be hard at all.
Okay, great. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to say I'm really excited about the fact that I think through COVID, as devastating as it's been, we've been able to take a pause and to reassess the things that are important to all of us and all of our communities. Early in the pandemic, probably around this time last year, I said to some folks that I don't think that COVID would break us, because I thought we were too strong to be broken by COVID. But what I did think, and what I think is very true now, is that COVID would reveal to us what was already broken about us, whether that's in our education system, our healthcare system, the relationship between law enforcement and the community. These are all things that they can be fixed, and they can't be fixed overnight, but they will be fixed over time if we put in the work and we are really passionate about things that are important to us. So I'm excited about the future, and I think that we're moving in the right direction.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Remember to make plans to join us again next week for Conversations with the Citizen, the place where real news